Hello, I'm Dane, and this is Dane Explains. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know I occasionally talk about the subject of SpaceX Starship. It's an interesting subject for any science nerd. Most will be aware that SpaceX attempted to launch their first Starship back on April 20th of 2023. It's late October as of the making of this video, and they still haven't tried to fly another. People who follow Starship will also know the holdup is not having a launch license from the FAA. However, people who watch Starship more closely will know it's not the FAA holding it up, it's the Fish and Wildlife Service, aka the FWS. This is because the first attempt to launch Starship launched pieces of the launch pad better than it launched itself. To prevent this in the future, SpaceX decided to add a water deluge system, something they hadn't planned on adding. This is why the FWS is holding everything up. They wanted to look at the addition to the launch system to determine whether SpaceX will need a whole new environmental assessment for it, which could delay the program for years. Well, there's a good reason it probably won't. Let me explain why. So, you're probably thinking to yourself right now, yeah, the reason why the FWS isn't going to ask for a new environmental assessment is because people are going to pull some strings for SpaceX. Well, that may happen. It doesn't need to. Anyone who's been watching Elon knows that he's been trying to get Starship to orbit with as little work as possible. People kept asking him if he was going to add a water deluge system, and he kept saying no, he didn't think they needed it, but that might be a mistake. Well, we know now it was a big mistake. The thrust of the Starship booster obliterated the structure underneath the launch pad, destroying and damaging many pieces of equipment around the launch site, as well as the launch pad and even people's cars. Elon dismissed everyone who was asking him about a water deluge system, not just because he didn't want to put the money and time in to build it. He knew adding it would get the attention of the FWS, because a water deluge system would dump enormous amounts of water into the wildlife sanctuary that surrounds the pad. If we go back to the beginning of 2023, the FAA was holding up the first Starship launch because they were concerned about the amount of fuel Starship was going to burn and what environmental impact that would have. That, coupled with a water deluge system, certainly could have pushed the regulators over the edge into asking for a new environmental assessment. So it was in SpaceX's interest to just pretend there wasn't going to be an issue, get the license to launch, and then hope for the best. What a lot of people miss is that SpaceX already had an environmental assessment years ago. It was back when Starship was still a far-off idea in Elon's brain. SpaceX bought the Boca Chica site to have a launch site to launch commercial payloads from using the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. However, the launch market didn't pick up as fast as SpaceX had anticipated, so they put off the development of the site until they needed a place to test and build their Starship rocket. For the first few years when they were doing prototype hop tests, there wasn't an issue because the amount of fuel used and the cadence of hops was allowed in their original environmental assessment. Launching Starship into orbit was not. So the FAA had to examine the additional impact Starship would have above what the Falcon Heavy was going to add, and if it would require a whole new assessment. The FAA said it was close enough, and they could launch Starship under the original assessment. This is where things get interesting. Many people have noticed that the water deluge system that SpaceX has designed for Starship is a bit of a unique design. Most speculating it's because they didn't want to have to go through the regulatory approval to dig a flame diverting trench. That's probably part of it, but I think Elon and SpaceX knew a traditional water deluge system for Starship would trigger a new environmental assessment. And no, I don't think SpaceX was just hoping the FWS wasn't going to notice they built one. The thing is, the water deluge system was approved by the FWS as part of the original environmental assessment, but the system was designed for the much smaller Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. So, I think SpaceX is playing the same game they did with the FAA at the beginning of the year to get around a new environmental assessment. Starship's water deluge system will use around 350,000 gallons of water. That's close to the 300,000 gallons of water the Falcon Heavy uses at the Cape, but way less than the 450,000 gallons of water the SLS needs using a traditional deluge system. And the Starship is by far much more powerful than SLS. So the FWS isn't looking at whether a new water deluge system would need environmental assessment, But would adding 50,000 gallons onto an already approved plan need a new assessment? My guess is the answer will probably be no. The big question is, will this novel water deluge system be enough to protect the launch pad during launch? Only time will tell. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button. Subscribe to my channel and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people who support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.